What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of You for Gundam GQuuuuuuX. This is episode 9, and with me, as always, I have Loosepid.
Yeah, this episode just, of course, really changes the whole direction of where the show is going right now in terms of
Yeah, I mean, I was assuming that was going to happen, considering Lala is gonna make an appearance in this episode, and Lala always kind of like um Lala has like just really advanced new type abilities, so I was sure there's going to be something crazy that was going to happen when she showed up, but I can't really say I expected them to go where they end up going with this with this episode.
yeah, especially. I mean, what would what's it going to mean, like moving forward, and how it's going to involve like several of the other characters, specifically Char
Yeah.
and one other character that we know about. Um, so okay, this episode is completely on in Machu's perspective after the last episode was mainly focused on Nyan. Um, so of course Machu is under Chalia's custody, wondering about the whereabouts of the Red Gundam, Shuji, the Rose of Sharon. Um, of course, Machu doesn't know much of this stuff, but she could assume that it might have something to do with it being on Earth. So one day, like she keeps receiving these mysterious text messages from somebody, which of course we they don't even reveal who it is. I mean, she's been getting these mysterious text messages a lot, and then it and somehow like she has her cell automatically opened up for her, and then she's able to get back into the G-Quux. Of course, and the members of like Charlie's group want to reapprehend her, but Charlie wants her to to go to the surface to see what's going on, because he's also keeping tabs of of all the text messages that she's getting. Um, so eventually, Machu crash lands into Earth, and then and then she gets found by like two brothel maids and taken to uh an estate, which turns out it belongs to Lala Soon.
Well, or she's just like
Yeah,
living
living
there.
there. And yeah, Mashu learns that um oftentimes there's this so-called lover that visits Lala every so now and then. And then one night, Machu sneaks out of her room and then encounters Lala soon um, somewhere outside the residence. And then she interacts with her, like asking, like like where the Rose of Sharon is. Of course, uh, Lala says that it's not here, as as of right now. But she so things get a little bit weird from here, in which Lala brings Machu into her. I guess she links her new type visions with her and tells her about like everything that happens in some kind of alternate timeline, specifically talking about a Xeon officer wearing a red uniform who freed her, and seeing him fight against the Federation soldier piloting a white mobile suit. I mean, for people who've
Mm.
watched the original know that it's obviously know it's both Char and Amuro Ray. Um, but of course, before Machu can find out anymore, they get interrupted by a Xeon officer telling her that that the lover is here. So I think either later that night or maybe sometime later, um, Lala's maids tell Machu to escape the mansion with her. So Lala does eventually like accompany Machu up to like to where the I guess it's not really the G-Quux itself, because it crash landed into the ocean. It's just basically, I think, the piloting unit that she was ejected from. So she tries to convince Lala to accompany her, but Lala refuses, and then she ends up staying behind while Machu ends up escaping on her own, going back to the G-Quux. But while but while she like goes underwater to look for the GQuuuuuuX, she finds like a mysterious mobile armor and finds another woman resembling Lala in the cockpit, which um I had to look into this like a lot, even after this because it's been a while since I've watched, a lot of the old Mobile Suit Gundam series that specifically the Universe era uh, shows. So eventually, Machu gets reapprehended by, uh, by Chalia's group, and they end up finding the mobile suit that this version of Lala's in, and then they realize they say it's the Rose of Sharon. And by the time they
Mm.
collect the mobile armor, they find that this version of Lala is not from their own world. Uh, so now me and probably everybody else is thinking maybe we're going into this whole multiverse direction from what we can tell.
Yeah. Yeah. But it does kind of make me question, like, if it is the Lala from the main timeline. Well, I mean, I guess spoilers for a series that came out in 1979, but she's supposed to be dead. So I question, like, if she's still alive. Like, I guess it depends on like when it was, like what point she, I guess, got transported to this other timeline. But I can see this. So I said before we started this recording, like, what once they revealed the Rose of Sharon and what it really is, like, and they start going into like multiple timeline theory and all this other stuff, like, it can get really messy. I mean, whenever a series goes into this, like, there being multiple timelines that exist, and they're kind of like acknowledging the what happens in the main timeline of the series. So I feel like I know where the series is going now. Like, it's going to, we're going, I don't know. I feel like we're going to get more into that, like with what happens in the main timeline, and it's somehow going to, it's somehow going to interact with this new alternate timeline. And I feel like that's probably what happened with Char, is that he somehow got transported at the beginning of the series to the main timeline of the main Mobile Suit Gundam timeline, and that's like probably what happened to him. But which would mess with the original timeline as well, considering it's an alternate universe Char that got transported to that timeline. So it's just, I can just see it being a huge mess. If that's where they're going with it, with this like Rose of Sharon thing.
This also leads me to speculate on whether or not Shuji is really a part of the this version of of this universe timeline.
Well, yeah, because we saw him also get like transported too, so we don't really know what happened with him. But yeah, I don't know. Like, it's interesting that they're going this direction, but like I said, at the same time, it can easily turn into a huge mess with them kind of having like doing the multiple timeline, having multiple timelines. And and the other problem is that we don't really know much about what's going on in this timeline. It's this alternate timeline either. So, but they're already like addressing that there's other timelines, like the main UC timeline.
So, I mean, well, okay. So Hideaki Anno is confirmed to have written this episode. So I could assume that, like,
well, that kind of makes sense considering what gets brought up in the episode.
I mean, Anno usually like I mean, I noticed like a lot of his shows, like it starts off a little bit subdued at first, and then it just goes off and just in an insane direction to a certain extent later on. So I'm guessing this is where he's really starting to kick his whole like plot line into overdrive, or assuming that's where he's going with this.
Yeah. The only other Gundam series that kind of did this was like Turn A Gundam, where people debate over whether that series takes place like in the future, I guess in the UC timeline, because but it's more subtle about it, because they reference stuff. They directly reference the RX-78 Gundam, but that's about it. Like, it's kind of that line that people, I guess, speculate on, like, oh, it could be. This could be like sometime in the future of Universal Century, but it's never like confirmed, I don't think. But here it's like they're directly saying like, okay, yeah, there's like there's the main UC timeline, and then there's this like alternate timeline, and both of them are I guess are now like interacting with each other.
Yeah. Um, I mean, overall, this I could say this is one of the more interesting episodes so far. And I mean, we still don't have an actual episode count, but I could assume there could be another core soon after this. I mean, they would have to if they're getting like this
Yeah.
crazy this soon into the series.
Yeah, I mean probably. But yeah, I thought it was a decent episode. I like I said, I can't say I expected like the Rose of Sharon to that was what it was. So I mean, I guess it really just kind of makes me wonder like what exactly like how exactly they're going to have the I guess the original timeline interact with this new one. But yeah, I don't really have much else to say about it though. I don't know if you have anything else to
It's
say
just
about it.
I don't know. It's like I was expecting like this show to be more open for I guess for newer Gundam characters, but from what I can tell,
Hmm.
I don't know. You would have to watch the original series just to know what happened because there are specific events,
Yeah.
specifically what happens to to Lala, Amuro, and Char, in that, including like the Char's counterattack, as well. You would need to watch that too in order to know what happened to those characters, and it's possible that they might bring them back, for this show, and it's possible that this show could potentially be a sequel to to the whole universe timeline story arcs. But it's yeah, but as of right now, it's hard to tell where they're taking this.
Yeah. It's definitely not like I would say it's not it's not a good idea if someone's not already familiar with Gundam and especially the Universal Century timeline to just like start watching this series because I mean I feel like you could at least get the gist of what's happening, but there's just a lot of background information you're just going to be really confused about. Especially considering this series just completely changes what happens in the 1 Year War and just kind of glosses over most of it. So yeah, if you want to know like what was actually supposed to happen in that, you should at least watch the original series, or if not just the original series, I guess just the compilation
Yeah.
movies. Um, but yeah, otherwise you're probably going to be confused about a lot of things.
I mean, hopefully, they can at least make the upcoming storylines to make a little bit more sense. But I feel like it's going to be a huge undertaking for them to do that now that they're involving a lot of what's happened that we already knew back in the original timeline. But it's going to be harder for newcomers to understand this.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, but yeah. So that all being said, guys, until next time, we will see you all later.